Hey everybody, this is David Lobenstein, Body, Brain, Breath, and Full Breath Massage. I am here on this delightful Wednesday. I think it's Wednesday. And today we're going to be talking about massaging the pectoral musculature of your partner. This stuff is amazing. The area we're going to work is literally just a couple inches below the clavicles, and then a little bit above the clavicles just for extra fun. But there's no end to the good that this can accomplish. So it's I think an often ignored part of the body, but it is a particularly wonderful part of the body, especially if you're doing it lovingly on your partner, or your kid for that matter, because kids need this work too. I find that kids hold a surprising amount of tension in this spot. So, I am here once again with my co-isolator, Molly. Everybody say hi. And we are going to get to work. So as you can see, today I'm going to be demonstrating on the floor rather than sitting in a chair and having Molly on a bed. Either way is fine. I just wanted to show you that there are these other possibilities if the arrangement on the bed doesn't work for you. So key here is that your partner is as comfortable as possible. Make sure that the floor they're lying on is, comfortable, whatever that means in your house. Place a pillow underneath their knees if lying flat on the ground feels like a lot on their lower back. And then in addition, particularly being on the floor, make sure that they are warm. So Molly's got a sheet over her and 2 blankets. You're going to want your partner to take off their shirt and either take off their bra or push their bra straps down if they're wearing one, because we want to have access to, again, that just first inch or two below the clavicles, okay? And then for your own position, what you want to try, if it's comfortable, is either to sit on your knees, as I am doing now, right? Or to sit cross-legged, okay? In either instance, you're going to be reaching forward, right? And using your body weight to create that contact with your partner. But the key, just as with all of these sessions, is that you're using your body weight as much as possible. And even though you're sitting, you are still thinking of your back long and tall, and all of the work coming right from your hips. So everything that I'm going to be doing today is going to be moving right from my hips, rather than bending with my back and then just pushing with my arms, okay? You will immediately feel the difference in your back, and your partner will immediately feel the difference if you're working from that strained position, right? Rather than from that easy full body position, okay? So think of using as much of your body to create every contact with your partner, just like always, even though we're in this somewhat unusual position, right? This is what's known as the seiza position when you're on your shins, okay? It can feel like a bit of a struggle at first, but it's worth it because not only is it a nice position to massage in, but it's also a really nice way to hang out with your kids, to get into yoga poses more easily, etc. So it's worth the practice. Okay. Now, just like always, we are not going to use any massage specific oils or anything. I'm just going to suggest that you get a little dab of hand cream, whatever you like, and just make sure your own hands are a little bit lubricated, okay? You don't need to apply anything to your partner, because just as always, you're going to find that less is more. So now here, what I want to suggest that you do is go ahead and undrape your partner so that, just as you can see with Molly, you can see the clavicles, right? Those two bones just below the throat, okay? And then you can see the first inch or two just below the clavicles. That is where the pectoral muscles are the most accessible, right? If you are working on a woman, you're not going to be working on the breast tissue, right? Because the breast tissue itself won't have a function in terms of relaxing, in terms of easing the musculature, etc., right? There are other very specific instances where actual breast massage is necessary, right, and is incredibly beneficial, but this isn't one of those times. After breast cancer surgery, if someone has clogged ducts from nursing, etc. But in this case, what we're doing is we're just focusing on the stripe of musculature that lies above the breast tissue, okay? And your partner will feel that. If you start to work too far down on the rib cage, the work won't feel like it's contacting muscle. It'll just feel more like the mammary glands and the other tissue that the breasts are made of, okay? So what I want to emphasize here is that even though this is a tiny area, we're talking about from the center of the rib cage, right? That's the sternum, that bone right along the center of the rib cage, spreading out across that pectoral tissue all the way to the shoulder joint, right? The front of the shoulders, okay? This is a tiny area, and yet, again, it is a therapeutic gold mine, okay? Everything that we do here is going to feel good, and chances are most everything that we do is going to feel intense, okay? This is an area where I find people are frequently surprised, right? We usually are aware of tension in our upper back, neck, shoulders. We're not usually aware of tension in our pectoral musculature. But as soon as you sink in, your partner will likely say, "Oh, wow, I didn't know that was tight," right? And that is the proof that this is an area that needs to be worked on. But the key is, it needs to be worked on with great sensitivity, okay? It is an area where if you go in too aggressively or too suddenly, you will immediately lose all of that therapeutic benefit, because your partner will think, "Oh gosh, what's gonna happen next," right? And that's not what we want. We want the opposite, right? We want your partner to think, "Oh, I wonder what's gonna happen next," right? We want your partner to long for your touch, to welcome your touch, okay? So the way we do that, just like always, is that we feel good in our own bodies. And so when we're contacting our partner with ease, it means that it feels good for us, it's sustainable for us, and it means that it feels good for our partner, okay? So same as before, you're going to just place your point of contact, your hands, onto your partner's pectoral musculature. You're not going to do anything or even sink in with any weight, okay? So just the weight of your hands. I'm going to start out by using my soft fists. So I'm contacting this area. These knuckles here, right, are essentially just below the clavicles on Molly, okay? And then this whole space from these middle knuckles to the base of the knuckles, this whole space in the backs of my fingers is sunk into the pectoral tissue. What this means is that I can give her a nice broad surface so that she doesn't feel like I'm just immediately digging in and pointing and pushing, okay? So just the weight of my hands, no effort, no force, no nothing, just introducing your contact. Chances are, if you just hang out here for a minute, focus on your own exhalation, your partner will already start to slow and lengthen their own exhalation. You'll be creating relaxation just by placing your hands on their chest. That's how powerful this area is. So once you have established just that effortless contact, not doing anything or going anywhere, then on your next exhalation, I want you to slowly sink your whole back forward, pivoting at your hips, just giving your partner a little bit of your body weight. Then check in with your partner, ask how that pressure is. You doing okay here, Molly?
Mm-hmm.
I'm guessing that, Molly, you'd be happy with a little more pressure.
Mm-hmm.
Good. So if they want a little more pressure, then all you do on that next exhalation is you just think once again, hinging at your hips and tipping forward ever so slightly. You can see I probably went forward just an inch or two, right? But it feels like a different stroke because I'm sinking more of my body weight in, okay? If your partner happens to want less pressure, then all you need to do is just sit up a little bit more and your body weight will naturally come off of your partner, okay? But again, if you sink slowly and with ease, right, you can find that exact point of pressure that is what your partner really needs right now. And so now all I'm going to do is just knead like a cat digging its claws into the couch, right? I'm just slowly sinking my body side to side. So my body weight is first sinking into my right hand, sinking into Molly's right pectoral muscles, and then on my next exhalation, I'm sinking into the left, okay? This is so powerful that you can see Molly's whole face is ever so slightly turning from side to side. It's not because I'm doing anything big and crazy, it's just because I'm slowly giving Molly that body weight of mine. I'm slowly moving side to side and allowing her tissue to slide and sink and soften along with me. Now, the beauty of this work is that with these soft fists of ours, right, we can begin just on either side of that sternum, the breastbone, right? Then, as we slowly do that cat kneading from side to side, what you'll find is that your hands will gradually begin to move ever so slowly out towards the shoulders. So my instinct is when the musculature begins to loosen, when the musculature begins to allow your hands to move in a certain direction, you go with it, right? You listen to whatever the partner's muscles are telling you. And so in this case, the result of that is with just this simple sinking and kneading technique, we can sink all the way from the sternum out to the front of the shoulder and even around and across the deltoids to the side of the shoulder. So you get this wonderful spread of your partner's whole front of the chest, especially for those of us who are working at home, who are crouched over a laptop, right? In addition to all the other craziness that we're doing right now, our shoulders are, chances are, rounded forward, okay? So what we're doing as we sink in here is we're encouraging those shoulders to open up. We're lengthening the whole front of the shoulder girdle, and we're enabling the shoulders to come back into a position of greater ease. So now, by the time I get here to the front of Molly's shoulder, I can switch from this soft fist to just an open palm. And this open palm means that I can curl that whole palm around the front of the shoulder, as I'm doing with her right side now, and then again kneading here, alternating my strokes as I'll do with the left. And so I can continue here, just coming up on my hands and knees. I can continue to soften and encourage the whole front of Molly's shoulder girdle, not trying to force or push anything, but just gradually coaxing the shoulders to open and come into this more loosened, less rounded or hunched position, right? We're encouraging our partners to come from this position, right, to this position. Sometimes with some of your partners, they may have more restriction on one side and one shoulder, often the dominant shoulder, than the other. So you can always just come to the opposite side of the body. So here I'm focusing on Molly's right shoulder, okay? Let's see if you can see that a bit more. And I'm on her left side. So again, I can just sink my body weight all the way across, sinking my fingertips into this whole space where the pectoral muscle crosses the shoulder joint and then attaches at the front of the shoulder. And I'm just encouraging that movement, that openness, all the way across until I begin to fall off the edge of her arm. If you do this with your whole body, your partner is going to be happy. If you just hang out here, slow and easy, okay? But again, if you start to force or push your way into this area, your partner is going to immediately seize up, okay? Because this area is quite sensitive. It's where the bone of the clavicle then meets into its joint, the acromioclavicular joint, and it's where you're right on the front of the shoulder joint, right? Which can feel like almost a little gristly sometimes. So it's not an area we want to dig in or poke around. It's an area where we want to establish that broad contact and then just sink, just give the gift of your body weight and your breath, your undivided attention to your client, to your partner, rather. Hopefully it's not your client. And that gift of your undivided attention is what is ultimately going to create that real lasting ease and change in your partner. So if you want to be extra nice, when this is over, you can repeat that for the other side of your partner, okay? But here I'm just going to come back to the front of the head position, right, where we started from, and I'm going to shift my own body position now into like a half cross-legged stance, okay? Again, it doesn't really matter what you do as long as you feel comfortable and you feel like you can move from your hips, okay? Now here, the sheet has come up slightly, so I'm just going to bring it down a little bit to make sure that you can see. Now what I'm doing is, rather than working with that broad surface of the soft fist, I'm going to open my hand and work with the fingertips, okay? So here, I want you to feel on your own body first. Feel for the bone of the clavicle, right? That bone that's running laterally or horizontally. So from the very top of your sternum, your breastbone, it's coming off on both sides and running straight horizontal to the front of your shoulders. It's a tiny little bone. We can actually manipulate it and move it a little bit in its joints. But what's key here is you're just going to place your fingertips of both hands on the on the clavicles, okay? With no pressure, just making that contact, and then, here's the beauty part where it gets juicy, okay? You're going to slide your fingertips off of the clavicles, off of the bone, okay? And you're going to sink just below the clavicle. So heading towards their feet, but almost like you're letting your fingers curl around the edge of the clavicles, okay? There are all of these tiny little fibers of pectoralis major and of this beautiful little muscle called subclavius, which we don't need to talk about now. But these are, again, one of those tiny little spots where no one ever says that they're tight, but as soon as you start working here, it's one of those, oh, that's where that tension in the side of my neck comes from. That's why I feel so tight all up in here, right? A lot of it is actually from right here. So what I'm thinking of here is almost like we're excavating this area. I'm curling right around the clavicles so I can still feel the bone, but then the tips of my fingers are sinking into the muscle just beneath, okay? And then once again, what you can do is knead from side to side. So sinking with my right hand, sinking with my left hand, easy back and forth. I'm thinking of letting all of these muscles very slightly lengthen and loosen and soften, okay? Particularly for those people who we love, who are stressed out and who are doing a lot of breathing, okay? They're using these muscles constantly, all day, all night, every day, okay? So just sinking here, just below the clavicles, and just sinking your body weight in, there you go, just as Molly did. It is an invitation for your partner to truly find the bottom of their exhale, to let all of that tension dissipate all the way down to empty, okay? So this is a tiny little spot. You're only moving like a half an inch, but it is, again, a therapeutic gold mine, okay? You can come laterally, so again, coming out towards the side of the shoulders if you want to, and do that same slow digging or sinking, okay? Remember, your fingertips are not moving. You're not doing any fancy stuff, right? You're just using your fingertips to sink in and encourage that lengthening or that spreading away from the bone. So you can come as far out to the shoulder joints as you want to, as I'm doing here. Okay. But then in addition, what can also be really nice is if you do this same work right along the breastbone, right along the sternum, okay? So using these same fingertips, coming back in right towards the center of the body, okay? So feel the bone of the sternum. You don't want to be on the bone, but you want to be just like, let's say, an inch, right? Your fingertips just an inch or so apart. So you're just off of the bone itself, because you want to be right here in this sternoclavicular joint. It's right where the sternum and the clavicles are attaching to one another. And then here, once again, using those soft fingertips, you can sink nice and easy. Good. And you're essentially getting into those little spaces where the clavicle meets the sternum, okay? And then as you sink down towards their feet, here what's amazing is that you're then getting into the little spaces where each of our ribs meets the sternum, okay? You're not trying to do anything crazy with your fingers. You're just sinking in to these spaces right along the edge of either side of the sternum, okay? Those of you who saw the rib cage video, the self-massage video, right? We talked about finding the peaks and the valleys. So here, once again, the peaks are your ribs. You'll feel these little bones that, right, jump up against your fingers. And what we want to sink into is the valleys, the places between those bones, because that's where these beautiful intercostal muscles are that run in between each rib and the rib below and the rib above. So these little intercostal spaces are, again, another one of these therapeutic gold mines, right? So I'm not trying to force anything. I'm just sinking ever so slightly, rocking ever so slightly into these valleys, into these intercostal spaces. And what that's doing is that's allowing everything, the whole rib cage, to begin to soften that much more, okay? And it's also allowing these pectoral muscles, right, which are right where my fingers are, to also soften and lengthen. So here you can just keep this easy rocking motion going. You might find that you eventually start to move up over the next peak, and that's fine. You let their tissue guide you, and then you'll dip into the next valley, and I guarantee it, that next valley will want some attention too, okay? So some of you may find that you begin to go out, right, laterally to the shoulder. That's fine, go with it. Others of you might find that you just continue to go down, and that's fine too, right? You want to make sure that the client's tissue isn't feeling particularly sensitive or painful, right? And otherwise, as long as it's comfortable for them, it's good for you, okay? So again, you're just sinking ever so slightly into these tiny, tiny little spaces, okay? Now, we have used our soft fists, right? We have opened up those soft fists and used our whole palm, okay, as we came out to the edges of the shoulders. Then we have used our fingertips as we sink into those valleys below the clavicles and along the sternum, okay? Now, what we're going to do is we're going to use our fingers to scoop the tissue, okay? So this is a whole other and particularly beautiful experience because we actually have two pectoral muscles, right? We have the Pec Major, which are the pecs that everyone knows about, the ones that bodybuilders have, you know, in quite large proportions, right? But then we also have Pec Minor. Pec Minor is this tiny little string of a muscle that's underneath Pec Major, okay? But it can be incredibly tight and tense, especially when we are picking up kids all the time, carrying heavy bags, working on the computer constantly, okay? The Pec Minor muscle is running up and down, okay, here, along this outer portion of the chest. So what we are going to do is we're going to take those fingertips, we're going to let them gradually slide out towards the edge of the shoulder, okay? Then when we get to the edge of the shoulder, essentially right on top of the armpit, okay, we're just going to slide down into the armpit and then scoop with our fingers. So we're going to be holding the Pec Major muscle with our fingers, okay? We're not going to be down so far that we're grabbing onto the breast tissue, because again, that's not going to do anything therapeutic for the musculature. We're going to be just inside the armpit where the muscle is, okay? Those of you who saw the ribcage video, this was the idea where you're imagining you're a farmer and you have your overalls on and you're hooking your thumbs under the straps of your overalls, okay? That hooking is into the Pec Major tissue, okay? So we're doing that same thing on our partners. We're just doing it instead of with our thumbs to ourselves, we're doing it with our fingers. So all we're doing here is as we slide all the way out to essentially the front of that armpit, we're using our fingers to curl around and then lift the tissue back towards us, okay? So again, we're not curling so low that we're holding onto the breast tissue, we're just holding this tissue right below the shoulder joint, okay? Right where the armpit begins. If you flex or tense your chest, you'll feel that muscle popping out in your fingertips. So that's how you know that you're in the right spot. But the beauty here is that as we hold onto this Pec Major tissue, what's happening is your forefingers and maybe even your middle finger are starting to approach your Pec Minor tissue. So you're essentially lifting the big, broad Pec Major muscle in order to sink into the Pec Minor muscle underneath. And so as you here very gradually are leaning back onto your heels, you can rock ever so slightly. You're not digging or pulling with your fingers. You're just leaning backwards with your whole body. What you're doing is you're gradually encouraging the tissue, the Pec Major tissue and then the Pec Minor tissue underneath it, to slowly release from that stuck position, that glued down position where it is pinned against the ribs. And here instead, you're just showing this whole broad area, how it can soften and release. ever so gently, not digging, not forcing, making sure you're moving easy in your whole body, and just gradually creating that ability for your shoulder girdle, for your whole chest to sink and soften. Now, if you're doing this right and you're working with ease from your whole body, there's a good chance that your partner will be almost asleep, which is kind of amazing considering that you're digging around in their armpit, right? This shows how much we need this part of our body to be worked on, right? And this shows that when we sink easy with our whole bodies, when we don't try to force anything, but we just give our partner the gift of our body weight, the gift of our breath, that we can create huge amounts of ease and relaxation, even in these incredibly tight and vulnerable places. So now, as you're ready, you can slowly release your fingers from that armpit position. You can rock ever so slightly out to the sides of the shoulders. Remember, sinking first right side, then left side, then back again, showing your partner that more movement, that more pliability that they now have in their chest. Now, this work is especially nice if you pair working on the pectoral muscles, as we just have done, with any other work that you want to do to the neck, to the shoulders, as we've done in past sessions. So I encourage you to experiment and continue this work from the chest to anywhere else in the neck and shoulders. I want to just end by pointing out that a really nice way to end your session, and for that matter, to tuck your kids into bed at night, is this. Once you have done a little bit of work on the chest, your partner or your kid or even yourself, right, will feel the power of this area, okay? You can draw their attention to it, right? This area that we often are completely oblivious to in our lives, okay? And then what you can do to bring this work to an end is just gently placing a thumb or your middle finger or your forefinger right between the eyebrows, okay? This is a powerful acupuncture point. Those folks who use chakras, I think this is the sixth one? No, I'm not sure. It's a powerful one too, right? Then, in addition, with your other free hand, you can place, again, that middle finger or that ring finger, the pointer finger or middle finger, I like both of them. Place it right on the sternum. I think of the area that's roughly right in between the two nipples. So you can draw an imaginary line and then place your fingertips right into that spot, okay? Also, another very powerful acupuncture point, and not coincidentally, I think, it's where many different religious traditions hold their hands while in prayer, okay? This can be a very centering and a very calming point, especially when paired with the spot right between the eyebrows. So I find just placing the weight of my hands here, not trying to force anything or do anything or make anything happen, but just holding here and following my own exhalation. Doing nothing, letting that inhalation rise whenever my body needs it, and then exhaling again. Just for these few breaths, for these few moments, we are just once again giving our partners our undivided attention, giving them and ourselves this love, this calm, this possibility of ease, even in the midst of all of this craziness. And then whenever you're ready, with that next easy inhalation, feeling your body, feeling your fingers being lifted ever so gently off of your partner. Breaking your physical contact, but keeping that emotional contact. And bringing your work to a close, but knowing that you can maintain that awareness of your own body and that attention to your partner, even as you move out and on to the next part of your day, even as you become immersed in all of the things that are awaiting you outside of this room. You can still have that awareness of yourself and that attention to your partner. This is what I hope for each of you in the midst of these wild and scary days. Our hearts are our homes. Our bodies are our homes. Let's treat them with all of the grace and attention that they deserve. And let's treat our partners and our families and our loved ones similarly. And together we will all get through this. Thank you so much.